Hey, everybody. Mr. Greg Siskin, the ever famous Greg Siskin, author of
Infamous.
You are author of the Immigration Cookbook.
Yes.
It's really a fantastic publication. It's not a how-to.
You have a copy?
Of course I have a copy.
Oh, I have to get you one if you didn't. All right.
Chuck Cook, I'm the author of the Immigration Litigation Toolbox from back in the day. No matter how to sue the government, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But Greg, we've got a couple things going on we want to address. I do want to jump right into the EB3 litigation because, and I don't want to get in trouble with Lily if she'll ever join us again. But we do need to get our little thing up here so we know what we're talking about and when. Hold on, there it is. So this is the EB TRO. So we've got started with 30 or so different individual TROs. A couple of, it's interesting, Greg, about 10 or 12 have been summarily dismissed by Trump appointees on the theory that you can't sue the government over a delay, which is literally not true. He didn't dismiss the case; they dismissed the TROs. Right. Mandamus is still pending, but it doesn't make obviously the TRO is the key. But we have others that are still ongoing, and in fact, the government is, as we're speaking, in several of our Texas cases, filing required responses to the judge to our TRO.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about that briefly, Greg, because within that response are a couple of declarations about our clients, and specifically talking about the why there's a retrogression. Now, Greg, you made a great point. It doesn't matter why there's a retrogression at this point, because why?
Their visa number is still available for this month.
So they just gloss over that completely, that for the next 5 days, they can adjudicate your case.
Yeah.
Now, they do say, well, then we would be taking them out of order, which we all know there's no order.
Right.
There is no order. They didn't really address that in a TRO. We are responding, going to reply tomorrow to that. So there's no, hey, look, you have visas now. But on the retrogression argument, Greg, that is what to me is, hubris. Is that what it is? Hubris. So we've got a declaration here from the branch chief of the Residence and Admissibility branch, which addresses the visa allocation process. He goes through the number each year and category, and then the 7%. And he does make this point that the 7%, Greg, is of all the numbers. It's all, so you can't use more than 7% of all the family-based and employment-based numbers to a single country, which is 30,420. So 7% is 30,420. So if a country has no demand from family, basically they can use a lot of the employment-based cases, or vice versa, right? Or if they got high demand from both, then that's why primary reason that India family retrogressed, because India is retrogressed, not current like more current like other countries, because there's retrogression of family. So he goes into that. But Greg, there is something missing. Oh, wait, before I get to that, he does talk about this. Let's say, in establishing the final, and this is really important because nobody can figure out why are they retrogressing India when they did finally verify, by the way, the 7% does not apply to numbers that flow over, which they'd said incorrectly previously.
Right.
So they said that, but okay, you're getting 130, 150, some crazy number of visas coming over, which they haven't announced yet. If I'm not mistaken, I didn't miss that, right? They haven't said exactly how many are going to be available, but we suspect more than last year.
Right.
How are they? Why are retrogressing getting all these visas?
Well, they're they're basically snowing the judge, in my opinion, by saying that by pretending that there's only going to be 7% of that rollover number available for India, as if there was this great demand for those numbers from rest of world. And when we know rest of world is current, and they and the normal numbers that are available are plenty sufficient to meet the demand from rest of the world. So
because it's not, they don't apply the per country limit, they should go to the oldest visas first, right?
That's right. Right. So there should be a lot. And so it doesn't make any sense why this massive retrogression is happening on there. And they haven't explained that. I have my suspicions that this is this is all designed to basically limit adjustment applications so that they takes the pressure off of the agency and off the USCIS and state while they're clearing through their backlog. I mean, there's one way to basically quell demand, and that's to retrogress.
Right? Quell demand. So here's what they said. This is fascinating. In establishing the EB3 November cutoff for India, Department of State and USCIS shared data. God, I hope so. About the estimated available visa numbers and the pending demand in their inventories. Okay. The current projected annual limit for India as of December 21, 2021 is as follows. The estimated annual limit for EB3 for India is 12,000. So they estimate that only 12,000 Indians would get an EB3 visa.
Right.
But here's the question. That's the numerator. What's the denominator? What's out of what? 12,000 out of 140,000? Or out of 30,000 of their annual? Because they don't tell you that. Oh, we forgot to tell you that. They have already approved, by the way, 1,300 EB3s for India in October as of Thursday, as of last Thursday. So they've got 10,000 more to give, but they say that they have an adjustment inventory of 80,000. So here's what they're telling you. A lot of information packed in here. By retrogressing the way they did, with only 12,000 a year, they just created a 7-year backlog. Right? They just created, so you will be retrogressed 7 years through this.
Assuming that's the real number.
They don't say anything right here.
I know. I agree. I just think that basically they have the ability to say that, to pretend that none of these numbers are going to get used by India beyond the 7%. And as long as they can make that case, then they can keep the numbers retrogress until those numbers are available.
But the thing is, we know there's more than 30,000. We know that because they're unallocated, over 100,000 unallocated visas.
Mm-hmm.
And Greg, what's magically missing from this 10-page affidavit? Anything about these visas.
Right. How many rolled over and what are they doing with them?
There's nothing there.
I think it's dishonest not to tell the judge about that.
Well, we're going to be mentioning that dishonesty in our brief because this is why they need to reserve visas, because they're not selling you the truth. They're missing out on the truth. So here's what they go. They say, even this, these numbers could change depending upon other country uses, whatever. Even without taking into account projected U.S. visa use and pending inventory of India, the USCIS volume of pending adjustment far exceeds the available numbers. So in order to ensure they don't use too many numbers, they retrogress for a 7-year retrogression. All right. Now this is what's really hubristic. Is that a word? Hubristic?
I'll take it.
Hubristic. As a final piece of background information, USCIS notes that retrogression does not in any way affect a non-citizen's place in what is commonly called the visa backlog queue or line. Whenever that term is used, it just refers to the amount of time they're waiting. So basically, say you just like Rich Renaud said, they have an EAD in a travel document, Judge. I don't know what the problem is. It's no big deal. So this goes on. They have more stuff that's important. The agencies, USDA advised US when it established October 21 dates for filing in early September 2020, so a year ago. The agencies were planning for an historically high EB limit of 262. All right, so they knew that. The first critical step was to reach the annual limit was encourage new applications. Now, Greg, why would they encourage new applications in last October? What was the purpose of encouraging new applications?
They had to use these numbers.
They needed the bodies, right? They needed the applications.
They wanted these applications filed also as early in the fiscal year as they could because they knew they were going to need the whole year.
So they knew they didn't have enough in the queue. So they did not have 262,000 EB cases. Yeah. Minus the ones that were going to come to the rest of the world, blah, 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 blah. All right. So they needed volume. So they set the date. Now here's where it gets, so this was to encourage sufficient new applications to reach the annual limit. They set a date for EB3 for January 1, 2015. Now here's where it gets interesting. And I think this is absolutely tragically hilarious. Within the first 6 weeks of the fiscal year, so during the time in which they could have retrogressed the EB dates twice in the visa bulletin, they could have set the dates back twice. All right, the first 6 weeks, it became apparent that India EB3 likely exceeded the number of visas available in 2021, even under the most generous applications. So in response, in January, they retrogressed the dates by year. So instead of doing it for the November bulletin, when they should have known, or the December bulletin, when they should have known, they just kept sucking your money in. Give us the money. We want the money. In the end, USCIS estimates that it received over 85,000 EB3 adjustments in the first quarter, which exceeded the projected number of visas available for India by over a factor of 4. I mean, first of all, I think their math is completely wrong, but whoever screwed up this bad, my question is, do they still have a job? Of course, are they still employed at the agency? Because that in any other real world, wait a second, you took in 4 times the amount of work than we can do under the law, you're fired.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense that they would have, that they kept it current. I mean, well, not current, but they kept those dates for 4 months when they were getting that volume of applications.
So they didn't know this? Yeah. Now here's the thing. Let's get back in our time machine. Were they opening the mail in October, November, December? Remember, nobody got a receipt, right?
Yeah, but they knew, they could still count them. Even if they didn't have the ability to enter all of them, they certainly could have. They knew the volume that was coming in, and if the volume was, so great that they couldn't even enter it, and they could have. Yeah,
it all goes to a specific PO box, right? So they know by the PO box how many cases are coming in. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The unprecedented volume of new applications was driven almost exclusively by people already in the EB2 queue who downgraded to EB3 status. Raises another set of questions. One, how did you not possibly in a million years predict that was going to happen? How out of touch are you of your constituencies that you did not foresee that from happening? Now, I will tell you this, in Charlie's defense, they don't tell him that people are doing that. So now, Greg, is what's interesting. You've got EB2s with an EB3 AOS pending. So you have double numbers. Mm-hmm. Here's what you don't see in their affidavit. How many of them are just one person?
Yeah.
So can EB2 now advance forward because they're now EB3s, and then they would move to the other side of the ship?
Right. But it's still all moot because if there are visas available this month And that's all we're asking for. We're no longer, this is not Chakrabarty anymore. We're not asking for visa reservations, and
we are asking for visa reservations.
Well, but not from the 80,000 from last.
No, in individual cases.
Right. We're not. That's not what this is all about. This is not about rollover, anything anymore. This is simply about there are visa numbers available this month. There's going to be a retrogression. We're not arguing with them over that. We're not arguing with them why that's going to happen. We're just saying get these cases done this month before this bad thing happens. So this whole affidavit, which is very interesting, and I think it gives us a lot of useful, information as far as the agency's interpretation, it doesn't really address the issue in these cases.
So, but we got to go on because there's other stuff here that just boggles the mind. While the U.S., this is what they said, the shifting of applicants to EB3 category created an unanticipated demand in EB3. Necessitating retrogression of the cutoff date. This sounds like the Borg. Retrogression was inevitable based on the applications filed within the first 6 weeks of fiscal year 2021. So what they're telling you is that by November 15th, 2020, they knew that this retrogression in November 2021 was going to occur. Yet they let people keep filing all year long. I mean, yeah, they retrogressed 1 year, but I mean, they still let all these EB2s continue to file. I mean, this is bureaucratic malpractice, for God's sake.
I'd like to know how many people they're leaving in the lurch as well. People that filed last October that are going to be affected by this. That's something they don't mention as well. How many of these applications were filed in that?
Exactly. How many are still?
How many people are going over the cliff next month?
Well, they do talk a little about something like that. So first, the agencies did take immediate action to limit any additional filings through the December 2020 retrogression of the date of filing for January. I mean, so they still let you file for a whole quarter, basically, in retrogression. Second, in managing the visa allocation, what they said, DOS was aware that while USCIS received large volumes of application, the agency was experiencing significant challenges in processing incoming workload. As a result, DOS reasonably calculated, this is Charlie, that it would be some time before the application would likely be approved and an impact on the visa usage. Based on the reasonable estimates, they set visa dates to facilitate maximal possible available uses for visa numbers. That doesn't make any sense. Because if they already had all these numbers with prior dates for EB2s, then it made no sense to retrogress. But here's perhaps my favorite quote in this. If the government could have anticipated that USCIS would process and adjudicate the tens of thousands of EB3 adjustment applications that received in Q1 before the fiscal year, DOS would have retrogressed the dates immediately instead of waiting. If only the government could have reasonably estimated it. If only. OMG. This is, I keep looking at this because I still can't believe that is in a filed government document. If only they could have estimated. Greg, I know this is the first year that immigration has ever taken adjustment of status applications, and the very first year in which it's ever run against the limit on the numbers. I understand how they could possibly have had no experience for the last 31 years on these numbers. Hopefully the judge gives us oral argument is all I can tell you. If only. If they go more and more, let's see if there's anything else in here. There are some very interesting stats in here. And I love how in this declaration is actually written like a brief because you're citing case statutes and reservation of numbers. It's like, wait a second, this is a declaration. It's not an argument. But they do say here, this is one of my other favorite things. Plaintiffs have suggested that it was to the financial advantage of USCIS to accept filing fees from adjusted applicants and then not take adjudicative action. On the contrary, for us, we now have to store all these files. We now have to move them from hither to thither and pay for the shipping. We now have to constantly renew work permits for free for the next 7 years.
Maybe they should have e-filing. Then they wouldn't have to move anything.
Electronic. Given USCIS spends more to adjudicate each application package than it collects in filing fees. Wait a second. That's not what you just told the world when you asked for raising your filing fees.
That is very interesting because they have to report in the, were they lying in the Federal Register?
I mean, Greg, this is, so we thank our client. We will, of course, keep fighting the court. We're going to, we want the TRO. We want them to order it. But it really goes back to Greg's main point. There's visas right now. Yeah. They can adjudicate them right now. What's interesting is they don't say, I know there's another declaration we're not going to get into because it's got client information in it, but they don't say they take cases first in, first out. They never say that because they don't. They didn't defend that part of our filing because it's clear they don't. We submitted mountainous evidence, thanks to our clients, that they don't take cases first in, first out.
Well, they did in one of the declarations. They argue that the second guy says that you'd be moving somebody to the front of the line.
But we know that's not true because people that are in front of our clients.
Right. No, we know. Right. That's which is easy to respond to. He never really addresses any of that.
No, because you can't, because facts are facts.
He asserts it without any evidence.
There are troublesome issues. Now, Greg, we're working on it, folks. We're fighting for you as best we can. It's just like the government just doesn't want to work. They don't want to
pull my hair out.
So we want to talk about K1 Moscow, Greg, because there's big news today.
Yes, there is news. Finally, the Moscow consulate and the State Department announced that they've moved all immigrant visa processing, I believe it's just IV processing, to Warsaw, which they had been doing sort of on a case-by-case basis. They were moving some cases to that consulate, but now it's the official policy. So I guess they're moving all of them, which, this has been going on for months. I don't know why they didn't announce this 3 months ago.
Well, what they announced is they're basically stateless, so they could technically go anywhere, but their home is Poland. So, we've of course telling our clients, I know it's not convenient for a lot of you. We get that, okay? It's, they live in Moscow. They don't have any money. How am I going to fly my fiance to Warsaw and stay in a hotel and go through the quarantine procedures? We know. We get all that. But we've also been telling you that we know they're closed, basically, in Moscow. So we're going to be notifying the court tomorrow and say, Judge, we asked you to order them to figure out a way to get our clients interviewed. By the way, they did this. By the way, it's monumentally inconvenient for some of our clients. So we really need an order from you to get them moving. So we want to update you that there is that official notice on K1s in Moscow. There is not, however, Greg, any information on any other K1s. All the cases remain with.
I think that's probably in the end of the day. This is good news for the Moscow plaintiffs. I think that we hopefully can get those moving more quickly now.
And Poland has actually been quite good to deal with, quite open, quite friendly, quite helpful. They were helpful in the DV lottery cases. I think they have a relatively larger consulate for visa processing.
Yeah, no, we've had pretty good reports out of Warsaw. So hopefully this is good news.
Well, hopefully the Moscow officers went to Warsaw is what I hope happened. That would be,
that we don't know yet.
So, but K1 Manila, Rio, Cairo is basically done. London, we don't have any news from the court on those. Mm-hmm. On our let's see, on our Kingsley case, see if I can find Kingsley here. Kingsley, if you haven't gotten your visa, you need to let us know because we shook one loose this week. If you're a Kingsley plaintiff in the non-immigrant visa section, you need to let us know, okay, so that we can get you scheduled. We've reached out to government counsel. He's worked with them to get it done. I think we've been told at least 3 have gotten their visas or appointments. So you need to let us know on that.
We haven't seen any official communication from the State Department actually mentioning Kingsley yet, right?
No, and that's because there's only 8 people. So
Right.
I wouldn't have.
You know, I mean, reading the order, I mean, they granted summary judgment and they never really specifically, I mean, he kind of glossed over the whole thing that the whole point of this case and what we filed it for. And I think you could read it as saying that it's like, doesn't specifically tell the State Department what to do, but he said they granted summary judgment on what we asked for, which is that. So that's anyway, but that it is interesting. And they're probably just playing for time since November 8th, I guess, is the day that the policy is over anyway. So anyway, all right, what's next?
So we've got the DV lottery, folks. All right. So we just, again, more word on this. We don't have any word on this. This is DV2020 and DV2021. We don't have any word, any information to share yet. The government has 60 days to appeal because I forgot, Greg, it's the government. The government gets 60 days to file an appeal. So that would be November 30th, I think, because remember October has 31 days. So it's November 30th to file an appeal. We just don't know. We asked.
We're kind of figuring that it's likely they will, because I think it was in Curtis's case that a different case that the government mentioned in a brief that they were planning on appealing that case, and I'm not sure why they would do that one and not the others.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, that case. The difference about that case is that it's very specific to the Europe area, but very helpful to our clients. Because most of our DV 2020 people are Europe, and those reserve visas a lot of reserve visas. So clients of ours that might not get it in the Go litigation might get it in the other litigation. So that's why that case is helpful. So so anyway, there's no news. So we any questions you ask about it, we have no news. Greg, we've got the EAD litigation.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about that because obviously we have some questions in the chat about it, but I wanted to give people kind of an update on that and what the reason has been for the holdup on that. And the main reason has been in the Chakrabarty litigation. This whole venue issue that blew up on us in that case, we are not interested in a repeat of that, and that has caused us to change the strategy in the EAD litigation to be filing it as a class action, which we didn't do in the other cases, and that should make it easier for us not to get pushback on that particular issue, or at least if we get pushback, we'll have an easier time with it. So that's one reason that's the main reason why, because we're basically reworking everything on that case. The other thing is we are co-counseling with the American Immigration Lawyers Association now on that case, which I think will strengthen that case. We have had, Chuck, is this case number 4 that we're co-counseling with Ayla, and the other three cases have been wins, significant wins for us. And this is so I think this is really good news in that case. November 6th, that is the target date for filing. I can tell you that if you are a plaintiff in that case, there's a couple of things that are changing that to pay attention to. One is that there is some additional language that has to be in a declaration for a class plaintiff. And so we are, by Wednesday, we'll have redone declarations, which we are sending to you guys, which need to be re-signed. And we're working on those now, and they will be going out on Wednesday. We'll also have an email that's going out on Wednesday, kind of, basically explaining what's going on. We have to update the FAQ, and we may be able to take some additional people in the case, but that's really not the point. The point is to get this filed by November 6th. So that's what to keep an eye on.
So there we are on that one. And Greg, what's the process of immigration reform?
So this is a very interesting week right now. I do not know why Plan C was only presented to the parliamentarian apparently like yesterday or the day before yesterday. on there when they are working under this deadline in Congress to try and like pass this thing by the end of the month. But that is this Plan C is basically making DACA statutory, which would be awesome if they did that, as far as protecting the program and having parole in place for other populations and some other things that they have in the works. So that's, nobody is willing to say this for the Democrats, but my understanding, based on what I'm seeing, is that they will not, I think it's very unlikely they're going to push for all the backlog reduction unless they get the Dreamers in there as well. Whether you think that is is good or not, I don't want to get into that here, but that is the way that I am perceiving what's happening right now, is that they will include all the backlog reduction stuff as soon as they get clearance on something for the Dreamers. I do think actually they have a pretty good chance of getting the parliamentarian to sign off on this latest version of it, because there's not actually nobody's actually getting green cards, and that seemed to be the line in the sand that she was drawing on there. So hopefully they will move. Now, the other thing is there's a lot of pressure being put on Kamala Harris to bypass the parliamentarian in any case, and to complicate everything. This has been also being delayed because Ms. McDonough has gotten cancer surgery in the last couple of weeks, and so she's been on medical leave. But I think she's done and back. So hopefully they'll get this. I think we're going to know sometime in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Now, you're referring to the parliamentarian having cancer surgery, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I wish her well, and hopefully she'll get well soon, and hopefully we will get something positive on that. I think, but this deadline is fast approaching. Just as sort of in the weeds, why October 31st is so critical. There are two bills. There's this infrastructure bill and there's a reconciliation bill. The infrastructure bill has highway funding, which apparently all expires on October 31st.
Because they extended it from September a month. Right.
And they don't want to have another vote on that. So they're trying to get everything. I mean, I'm like a little surprised that it's that difficult to do another vote, but that's what they're trying to do, is get this done. There was a word from Joe Manchin today that he believes they have a deal, but he wants to see the exact language before giving final sign off, but he seems to be okay with the framework. Kirsten Sinema, I understand a couple of days ago, they reached some kind of agreement with her regarding funding. So I think on everything else, they're going to make a deal. I'm pretty sure this bill is going to pass. Whether immigration is in there or not, we're not going to know probably for another day or two.
Greg, I had a very interesting conversation with a well-placed U.S. Senator on Friday morning.
Yeah.
About this. And I gathered that there is perhaps a lot of pressure on Vice President Harris in regards to overruling or simply ignoring the parliamentarian. And that is an interesting vote, by the way.
Well, the question is, do they have 50 Democrats that would go along?
They don't need 50. They need 40. It's really interesting the way this vote.
Yeah, but will they get 50 in the end for the whole package if they let that?
Well, that's the question.
Is that a line in the sand for Joe Manchin, Kristen?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, Joe Manchin, I guess President Manchin will tell us what he wants in a press conference in the hallway.
I have a feeling he won't care that much once it's done. But, he seems to be persnickety about it.
Sinema is the one that really concerns me because, I mean, I don't think she wants to. She's clearly going to have massive primary problems in 3.5 years when she runs again for re-election. I mean, the left is going to come after her like flies on a pile of poop. I don't know what she's going to do in the meantime. Rehabilitate her image. But I think she's got serious.
Is that her call to bring that? I mean, for her to. I mean, does the Senate need to specifically vote or ask her to do that, or how does that work?
Well, way it works, as I understand it, is somebody would make a motion to overrule the parliamentarian. Somebody would so somebody said, she announced we're going to overrule the part. I reject your advice. Somebody then says, well, I object to you objecting to the advice. But to overrule the vice president requires 60 votes.
Right. So this is so my basic question is this, like, who's driving this, her or Schumer?
Well, you know, it's so much easier when Harry Reid was in there because you didn't have to ask that question about who was driving what. I have no idea what Schumer's doing.
Well, we will see. So that is right. So with the parliamentarian, basically, I mean, actually, if they decide to do that, then they could just take the House language.
They could take everything. Exactly.
I mean, I would love them to do that. I mean, if they can get it done vote wise, then the House language is awesome.
But then it becomes subject to vote-a-rama if they do decide to overrule it. So you have all these votes, all these changes. So, you might need to be prepared on October 31st to stay up, November 1 to wee hours of the morning to find out what really happens on immigration.
Yeah. Well, the good news is we won't have to wait that long to know. By the time we have our next call,
we'll know.
We'll know.
We'll know. And we'll depend on the Siskin summary of that.
I hope there's a summary. Because if there's no summary, it means they didn't do anything. We will see.
All right. First question is from Chris. What if the judge does not respond to our case forever? It won't be forever. I mean, he literally has to respond. Actually, there was kind of a humorous incident this last week. I had a hearing in front of Judge Mehta of DV fame in a different case on our EB5 case. And of course, EB5 is gone for right now. And he said, well, Mr. Cook, I saw this. The case was transferred to me from California. I saw that there was a pending PI motion. So I ruled on it. And I said, well, I was kind of hoping you would rule on it, Judge, because we needed that for the law to come back. But, the judges know. They know what's on their calendar. They know it's there. And it's just a question of them deciding to act on it.
I mean, we have this DC problem in general, which is these court, the DC courts have been completely overloaded. The problem is, I mean, we want to file in DC because the judges actually do a much better job on the immigration cases.
Well, as evidence in the Nebraska case with guys literally dismissing a TRO with no response.
And that's the problem on here is, like, we can get faster judges, but they're probably not going to be the judges that, odds are they're not going to be the best judges for these cases. But so we're kind of caught in a difficult position because of the backlog in the DC courts.
Patrick thinks some people are saying that the judge will just wait till everybody's process. Well, how's he going to know? The government hasn't given an update on anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, at a certain point, he's going to have to decide something on this. Government deadline is November 30. November 29? November. Well, is Maida's order the 30th? That would make the deadline the 29th. Whatever the 60 days are. I think it's the 29th. Let's see. Any update on premium processing for H4 EADs? Greg, have you heard anything?
No, although that may be one of the issues that we, if we get anywhere on this EAD case, that's one of the issues we're going to press on as a, potential area where USCIS can show some good faith in trying to settle the whole matter.
I think the bigger problem, Greg, is they don't have the bodies to process the cases. I mean, it's a chicken and egg problem. Okay, we're going to try taking them. Well, who's going to adjudicate them? They don't have enough bodies to adjudicate, 100,000 15-day EADs? Do they even have the paper to make the cards? I mean, who knows? Talked about the H4 EAD litigation earlier today. Any of the immigration reform? You just had a great update from Mr. Siskin. Tiered approach.
Well, we didn't talk about was that crazy Mang amendment that showed up in that's showing up in the Senate DHS appropriations bill.
Yeah, but is it going to stay in there or not?
Well, I mean, why is it there in the first place? If it was supposed to be dead, I mean, it was supposed to be. I was told don't worry about it, and then all of a sudden it shows up in the Senate bill on there. The crazy part of that whole thing is they don't. It sounds like they could try and claw back green cards from people that actually had them issued.
I mean, it's really poorly written.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen on that, but it's important. I think that all of us think that was raised in the last couple of days was done, because I think a lot of people just assumed that it was going to help EB, and it's not.
It's not a good bill. I mean, the way it's written is problematic.
No.
Eunice, good to see you. De Clorox, Priyanka, and Greg. And date, we already talked about that. And I think our goal is to file
November 6th.
November 6th. That's what we're going to file by.
That is the target.
Is it possible we put the link on EB3 information was issued for October 2021? I am going to post the link on the Twitter machine as soon as I clean up client-specific information in that document, and I'm going to post it with a link to a Dropbox. Well, think about it. This is my question. This is what's never been addressed by the government. Shouldn't India get all the visas? I mean, they're unrestricted. I mean, that's the design, right? The design is a rollover to reduce the backlog.
Right. If rest of world doesn't need them, then it should go to whoever needs them based on priority date.
I mean, that was our whole argument in the Chakrabarti.
That's why they should all go to India. I mean, even though China has some backlog, they don't have dates that are as.
No, they're all in front of big chunk of India.
They're all right. They're all more recent.
Okay. Any chance the H-1B wage rule comes back by DHS? Well, I mean, I talk about the wage rule about,
Well, we haven't won that case yet.
No, is a stay in place in California. Our case is still pending, and the Biden administration seems to be carrying the ball on it. But I think in order for them to make it legitimately in place, they're going to have to rerun it through the Federal Register. I mean,
they'll have to do a new rule, and I'm not hearing any rumors that there's redrafting going on. I don't know if you've heard that. I have not heard it.
Sachin, so I actually sent, Sachin is the client. I mean, he just revealed himself. He's the client who got the TRO response. Sorry, Sachin. You kind of outed yourself. Bananas. It's a bananas one. It's crazy. It's like they have anything. It's just grasping at straws, throwing stuff on the wall. It's frustrating because the judge doesn't know squat from Shinola. He's going to think the government is giving them the whole story when they're leaving out chapters 3, 7, and 9 and the ending. So we're going to go through that. Maybe I'll use that acronym and I'll use that aphorism when I talk to the judge if we get a chance. Let's see. Oops, it skipped a little bit here. Ms. Pelosi just claimed the deal is 90% done within the party. But we don't know. Again, Greg just talked about that. We just don't know.
There is a provision in the House version of it that would let all the DV numbers that got wasted for the last 4 years be recycled. So that is something to keep an eye on if you're DV, what happens. So we'll know by next week. Yeah.
Francois, please email Lily, copy me too, so I can reach out to government counsel in that case. We're going to update the judge on how many cases have been processed. Greg, do we have a number on how many people updated the database? We asked a couple of weeks ago. Do you know? Can you ask your team if anybody's updated? Did we get an update on that? Who issued visas?
Yeah, let me put that on my list.
Give us a chance to update the judge. Hey, let's let you know, since we filed this 8 or 10 months ago, only X have gotten their visas. Just FYI, which is why we filed it 8 months ago.
That would have been a good Lily answer if she were here.
We need to get Lily back on here because she's so entertaining on this. Let's see. Tarek had his DV, and I'm sorry about DV2020. I hope you get picked. We just don't know any details. DV2022. So here's the deal on DV2022. We talked about this before. We're going to wait till January. In January, we'll make an assessment about whether it's appropriate to file litigation on the delay.
And January is when we have the first quarter's data. That's why we're waiting. That's why we'd wait. So we actually have some evidence before we file what's happening.
All right. So Greg, that's the last of our questions on this. We will be back next week. Greg, you're live tomorrow, right?
I will do my weekly Facebook at 1 tomorrow and answer whatever questions people have.
And I'll do now, Greg. I have learned that through this StreamYard, which is the product we're using, and when you get paid no money from them, it's a fantastic product for doing these updates. And you can do Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn all at the same time. So I will be on
I
Wednesday.
need to link up all those.
Get your link them in. It's just really easy to do. A great product, by the way. I mean, I don't know how they make money, but I mean, it's a great product. But,
we pay the money.
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, it's not a huge.
Not a lot. It's like $20 a month or whatever.
No, I don't know how they're making money.
Pro subscription, but it's well worth it.
It's a fantastic product, and so I'll be live Wednesday at 2:00. I know Aaron will be live 2:00 Eastern as well on Thursday, and our firm is every day at 2:00. We got something going on. I think we have Mandarin on Friday or Thursday, and then Spanish every day. So we'll be available. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Great seeing you. Hang on, we'll talk to you afterwards. We'll say goodbye to everybody till next week. Thanks a bunch.